There's a theory in media psychology that most people have never heard of, but almost everyone is living inside it. It's called cultivation theory, and it was developed in the 1970s by communication scholar George Gerbner. His basic idea was simple but unsettling. When people consume a lot of television over long periods of time, they slowly begin to perceive reality the way television portrays it, not consciously, not dramatically, but subtly over years. Gerbner originally studied TV violence. Heavy viewers consistently believed the world was far more dangerous than it actually was. They overestimated crime rates, the likelihood of being attacked, and how common violent behavior really is. He called this the mean world syndrome. But violence was just the beginning. As media expanded, from TV to movies, series, streaming platforms, and now endless fiction across books, fan communities, and social media, cultivation effects didn't disappear. They multiply. And today, they shape how people think about love, success, conversation, identity, and even the emotional texture of everyday life. One of the most studied modern examples is often called the romantic comedy effect. Meta-analyses and longitudinal studies in relationship psychology show a consistent pattern. People who heavily consume romantic movies, dramas, and love-centered fiction are more likely to believe that love should be instant and obvious. The right person will feel magical right away. True love conquers all practical obstacles. Intense emotion equals relationship quality. They're also more likely to idealize partners early and feel disappointed when real relationships turn out to be slower, messier, and less cinematic. This isn't speculation. Studies from the 2000s onward, including work by Holmes, Johnson, and colleagues, found that media-based romantic beliefs correlate with lower relationship satisfaction and higher breakup rates, especially when expectations collide with reality. And this effect is not evenly distributed. Research from the 2010s and early 2020s shows that young women aged roughly 18-25 who consume large amounts of young adult fiction, romance novels, and serialized dramas, including Korean and Turkish dramas, tend to report significantly more unrealistic expectations of male partners. Not just emotionally, but behaviorally. Grand gestures, constant emotional availability, poetic speech, flawless timing, and dramatic devotion, all treated as baseline, not fantasy. When real men fail to perform like scripted characters, the disappointment feels personal, even though the comparison was never fair to begin with. There's another, less discussed phenomenon that researchers and clinicians have started to notice more clearly in the last decade. Some call it scripted speech disappointment. Others refer to it as post-fiction awkwardness. The idea is this: fictional dialogue is not how humans actually talk. In movies, shows, and novels, people are witty on demand. Emotional responses are perfectly timed. Silences are meaningful, not awkward. Every sentence advances the plot. In real life, people hesitate. They repeat themselves. They search for words. They interrupt. They miss cues. Several studies between 2019 and 2024, particularly in media psychology and communication research, suggest that heavy exposure to highly polished fictional dialogue is associated with lower satisfaction in real-life conversations, both with oneself and with others. People report that real conversations feel slow, dull, awkward, emotionally flat. Not because something is wrong with reality, but because the comparison standard has been quietly rewritten. The more high-quality dialogue someone consumes, the harsher the contrast becomes. More recent research has uncovered something even more striking. A subset of people, particularly teenagers and young adults, begin to prefer fictional worlds to real life. Not metaphorically, literally. Psychological studies on maladaptive daydreaming, narrative transportation, and immersive escapism show that some individuals spend more emotional energy in books, shows, or imagined worlds than in their actual environment. They describe real life as gray, empty, meaningless, underwhelming, and fiction as emotionally rich, purposeful, intense, alive. This doesn't mean fiction is bad, but it does mean the brain is adapting. From a neuroscience perspective, this makes sense. Stories are dopamine machines. They compress years of emotional intensity into hours. They remove boredom. They eliminate randomness. They amplify conflict, romance, and meaning. When the brain is repeatedly exposed to high-intensity emotional narratives, it adapts. Dopamine baselines shift. Normal life, with its repetition, ambiguity, and low stimulation periods, starts to feel insufficient. Researchers often compare this effect to how pornography distorts sexual expectations. Not because stories are porn, but because the mechanism is similar. It's not about morality. It's about neuroadaptation. When your emotional diet is constantly epic, ordinary life struggles to compete. The cultivation effect doesn't hit everyone equally. Research consistently shows stronger effects among adolescents and young adults, roughly up to age 25-27, while the prefrontal cortex is still maturing. People high in neuroticism, emotional sensitivity, or fantasy proneness. Individuals who use fiction as their primary escape from dissatisfaction, loneliness, or lack of control in real life. In these cases, fiction isn't just entertainment. It becomes a replacement environment. This isn't an argument to stop reading novels or watching shows. Stories are fundamental to being human. But cultivation theory reminds us of something uncomfortable. What you consume repeatedly doesn't just entertain you, it trains you. It trains your expectations, your emotional thresholds, your sense of what feels normal. If you only eat candy, vegetables will taste bland. If you only live in stories, reality will feel empty. The solution isn't rejection, it's balance and awareness. Understanding that fiction is compressed, optimized, exaggerated, and that real life is slower, quieter, and less scripted, but also more flexible, more forgiving, and ultimately more real. Because the danger isn't that fiction is fake. The danger is forgetting that it's designed to be better than life, and life was never meant to compete with that.